and I am going to bring up a thermal this time. Let me close out all these images real quick just to help me out here. This is a thermal. This is from behind Mark's house, and let me bring up my notes here. This was, I think, mid-June, maybe June 23rd, we were there. And we were sitting out front of Mark's house, and we had a fire going, and we were just talking, not out looking. We had both of our thermals. We were scanning and looking. And then we thought, let's go around behind Mark's house and just see if there's anything. And that's when we caught this. This is actually two individuals. This is right there. The call in is a juvenile on the back of another Sasquatch. You can see it. Unfortunately, there's heavy foliage there, but this individual on the back, you can see their legs wrapped around the front. You can see the light heat coming down there. That is the larger of the two individuals, and this is the larger of the two individuals' head. That was probably, yep, the arm coming around there. It's almost like this. So we're looking at the right side of these two individuals. There's the smallest head. There's the largest of the two. And this little heat signature right there lines up with the juvenile on the back, its left arm wrapped around the neck or the chest of the bigger individual. I'll move my mouse out of the way. You'll see that little red heat area. So this time they got us, we pre-adjusted the thermals for 80, 85 yards, and here we are less than 20 yards for them. So we didn't get that crystal clear resolution that we would hope to have gotten. Because like I said, once we're there, then they know it. They do not hang around long. They move on.
It's definitely taller than the other thermal you've showed for sure.
Yeah, and the optical here, the X and Y axis, where this is closer, it's not going to auto configure your 5 or 10 yards. It's not going to be the same as versus looking at 80 yards. I think the larger of these two individuals here is about 5.5, maybe 6 foot tall. The only way to truly show or represent that size is for one of us to be there and do the same picture and line them up like we did with Mark. And also on this same day, this picture here, this is when we first seen them hiding. This didn't come through very well. Like I said, all the foliage, you can see the tree limbs in front of them. There's leaves everywhere. But right here, where I'm calling out, there is a left eye of an individual, and there is a right eye. So there were about 4 individuals, and these were smaller altogether, right behind Mark's house. And it was just a fluke as we all 3 walked around there that we were able to capture them. And once we came around there, they started moving away quick. So they didn't give us much of an opportunity to film them with the thermals. And I've got one last picture here that's a little bit better. Actually, it's not. This just shows 2 of them. This is in that same area from the first picture where you had the smaller juvenile on the back of the larger Sasquatch, but it's a little bit distorted too. All right. We have covered our daytime pictures, our thermal pictures that we had selected. And before we get into the audio, actually, let's go ahead and before we get into our audios, we also have some pictures and videos of orbs that we captured on the cameras there that we thought your audience would enjoy. So this first picture coming up here, I'm going to bring the still photograph. This comes from our tilt pan zoom camera behind the back of Mark's house. Now I'm going to zoom in here. And obviously you can see a deer there. You can see the night eye shine from the deer. And this object right here, I'm just going to call it an orb. I have no idea what it is. We've talked about this at great length. It's about the size of a basketball. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the video and just let you guys watch a 10-second video of it here so you can see. So that was a moth that flew by the front of the camera. And that deer is sitting there looking east, and there it comes. Let me play it again. So the deer's just there looking, and out of nowhere, up from the forest, there goes the moth. We know that's a moth. You can see the wings on it. There went another moth, and here this thing comes.
Doesn't have wings.
Yeah.
Man, that is so weird. It does come up from the forest. It almost just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. So you can see in the top right corner, we're at 20. The time is at 3:42 in the morning. This is July 22nd.
Okay.
So we're at 26, 27 seconds, 28, 29, 30, 31. Here it comes.
Oh.
And I have absolutely no idea what that is. Here is another still photograph that we've taken from the video, zooming it in there. You don't see, it's not a bug. The bugs will, with the infrared light, when the infrared light hits a moth or bug or cricket or anything else, that insect will stay illuminated. What you've seen, whatever this is, I'll just call it an orb, it is producing its own light, like it's like a lightning bug, how they're bioluminescent. They can create their own light. But lightning bugs don't get this big. This thing is bigger than a basketball. And we see those every night at Mark's house. They
really?
come every night. You might see one at 11 p.m. and 30 seconds later, here comes 2 or 3 of them. Or it might be 2 a.m. the next night, and here's a swarm of 15 of them coming different
15?
ways. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're seeing these just with your eyes, like not just on video?
Just on the video.
Okay. Okay.
When we've been down there at night, Charles and I, we don't go in the backyard very often in fear that we're going to push the Sasquatches back down or back into the woods. We'll stay in the front yard. I've watched video of when we're out front of Mark's house, reviewed that video, and I've never seen these orb things while we're out front. The few times that we have been out back of Mark's house, the next day I've reviewed the video, I never see the orbs. They'll come out when deer are around, but this is the only time. So I can't say. I have captured on the front cameras what appears to be orbs without infrared light. Mark has a security light on the front of his property, and I've captured actually on 2 occasions an orb flying around the transformer on that utility pole. Like it would fly in toward the transformer, circle it around, go around the transformer a time or two, and then it backs off about 20 or 30 foot, and then it goes back to it. It would do those series of moves about 10 or 20 times, and then it would fly off. So that's one orb. Here is I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to show the audience another orb from another date here. I'll bring up the picture first so you can see it. So this was on July 26, 2024 at 3:23 in the morning. You can see this one, and if I remember correctly, this guy's going to be going a lot faster. Here's another picture as he's flying from the front of Mark's home into the woods. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the video. So here we go, 32. There he is. See how he's producing his own light? Play it again. See, it's like he flies slow, and now he's picking up speed.
It's like the same thing, like how it appears out of nowhere from the woods.
Yeah. And you definitely see it pulsing.
Yeah.
Like it's creating its own light. Play that again.
Oh my goodness, dude. This is nuts.
And the same direction and the same shape.
I'll zoom in on it there. And this isn't a circular shape. I don't know the geometric. It wouldn't be a trapezoid. It seems to be a little bit wider and its height a little bit shorter. But that's one characteristic that you can see in all of them. It's something else. Let me bring up another orb here. Let me close all these out real quick. So this is the orb number 3. So I'm going to bring up a picture. So this guy gets closer, and right here, he's not that bright. and you can see this sapling. You see the base of this sapling, and you can see part of the sapling. You can actually see through this thing, whatever it is. So here's another example. I went through the tilt pan zoom camera does 30 frames per second. I'd go through frame by frame and try to pull out the best and anything. And if you look at it close enough, as crazy as this is, that looks like a left eye. That looks like a right eye. That looks like a nose. This looks like a mouth. Maybe it's pareidolia. I've shown these to a lot of other people, and they too have recognized that, man, there's a face there.
See both nostrils.
Yeah, that would be the nose. There would be the right eye. There would be the left eye, mouth. So I'm going to go ahead and play the full video here. It's a short video. And you could see it fly through there. There it comes. And it was pulsing with the light. Did you see that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Play it again.
You can even see it coming from back in the woods.
Yeah. Maybe some of your audience members will have some ideas, or maybe they've encountered or captured similar things.
The one with the deer again, the one came over. Look, it's coming right up out of the same hole in the woods as the one with the deer. See it come right up to?
Yeah, it comes to the left of the deer there. It'll be coming out here in a second.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he flew through that tree right there. I'm going to hit play again, see if I can shrink this down. If you look, directly behind that deer is a shagbark hickory tree. And it's almost like it flies through part of it. Play it one more time here. And like I said, everyone, you just seen the moth. The bugs that you see, they stay a solid color. And these things, whatever they are, they seem to emit their own light pulse.
Now, have you found anything down in the woods in that area where it seems to be coming out of?
We found tracks, but we've not,
Okay.
Tree breaks and things like that. But
something that I saw was really interesting. Just across the road and down from Mark, maybe 1/8 of a mile or something, somebody had put up a new no trespassing sign, and it had been put up with screws, and the screws were new, but the sign looked like something had a claw hand that had just grabbed it and tore it all to pieces. And it's a new sign, and obviously they didn't have a hammer there, nailed it with nails because it was screws. And you can almost see like knuckle marks in it, like something had punched it or grabbed it with its hand and just wadded it up like a piece of notebook paper almost. I don't know if he's got any pictures of that, but that's always stuck in my head of, wow, what would have had the power to have done that? And you can see the individual grab marks in it.
That's very interesting, Charles. Yeah, that just adds, listeners will remember that when I talked to Mark previously, there are things that happen in that area. For example, there was the neighbor lady whose dog got hurt pretty bad by a interaction with one of these creatures. I think he was telling me. So
I think they just didn't like that sign up because it was new, trying to get it down or destroy it or take it or something. But if it'd been a person, they would have gone ahead and got it on down. Obviously, they would have had a tool or something there they were doing it with. But you can actually almost like see the individual knuckle marks or finger marks, like something had just grabbed it and just totally destroyed it. You can clearly see like, wow.
It's extremely interesting.
So this is the last orb we had selected here. So this is a still photograph from 11/29/2024, 11:06 p.m. And down here at the bottom, you can see it. It is going to. Well, I'll go ahead and bring up the video. We'll watch it. So it's flying out of the woods. See how it scoots along? Let me play it again. It's going to be coming from the left out of the woods, up and over, and it's moving along pretty quick, and then it slows down, and then it picks up speed again. But I've got my notes here for your audience. Notice there's no wind blowing. Here, this is the end of November. You can still see some leaves on the tree. Actually, let me bring up a photograph. It'll be a little bit better. None of these small leaves blowing. End of November, which we'd expect. Almost all the foliage is off the trees. So you don't see any other moths or bindles or other flying insects in the video. But yet these things are producing their own light intensity. They go from a brighter state to a less lighter state of intensity. Another thing, the insects are very erratic, like the deer video. We've seen the moth flying left, up, and down. These things are more trajectory, taking a path across the back of Mark's yard. This isn't a rotor helicopter. There's no propeller. There's no jet thrust. There's no flaps for your lift or drag. There's no ailerons for rotating. There's no rudder for your side-to-side yaw. There's no elevators. It's interesting, whatever they are. But the distance from the camera that's taking these pictures to where this orb object is right there is probably about 40 foot.
And see, the grass isn't even blown over below it there. See, I mean, it's still standing up.
Yeah.
If there was any kind of rotation, that would have been laid over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great call out.
And one thing, these orb things travel at different speeds. So basically, from the edge of the forest here, where we first seen it in the video, over to where it goes out of the video with the edge of Mark's home, that's probably about 60 to 70 feet. This thing is traveling at a speed, this orb is, it's covering about 65 feet in a second, maybe a second and a half there. 65 feet per second is 44.3 miles per hour. I've seen some of these orbs come all the way over here from the right, all the way down to here where I'm calling out where the camera name Echo 1 is, over here to the right. Mark, I've seen them travel this distance here, going so fast, it's like half a second. And that's about 110 feet maybe. So that's like 70, 75 miles per hour. There's no insect that travels that fast.
And does it go past the end of the trailer, or does it disappear into the trailer?
It disappears into it. That's a good point. That's the other thing. So
disappears into the trailer. Oh
yes.
Man.
So you can see the corner of the trailer
right here. Here, let's watch it. Let me get it. So right here is the corner of the trailer, the very tip, and it goes all the way down and then there. So we'll play this, and it flies right through it.
Yeah, that did not go around the far end. That came back this way. That goes right into the trailer. And even look at it as it passes these trees on the far left when it comes into view.
Yeah, he's really going fast, and then it slows down, and he starts speeding up toward the end. So for your viewers, I'm going to try to call it out over here. This is a sort of the path it's going to make from here to here. Watch how fast it's going, and then it just slows down. All right, here it comes. Slows down, bobs, starts speeding up.
And that's coming a different direction. The previous one with the deer sitting there, and the other one that was coming from like straight ahead coming toward us. So that would have been like a north to south, where this one's coming from east to west.
Yeah.
So, they travel in different directions, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm going to play the deer one more time, and then the top, we're at 27, 28, 29, 31. So at 32 to 33, this object came out of the woods, crossed over the deer, went toward us, traveled about 65, 70 feet. I know it's hard to see just in the video there. That's about 45, 50 miles per hour that it traveled, and we're seeing it. So it's not an insect, clearly. Play it one more time here.
Are there any burial mounds or anything around his area, close to his property or anything?
Not that we're aware of. There's a cemetery, I think, probably about 2 miles away.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing that we're aware of there. All right, so that was the last of our orbs there. Are you ready to get into the vocalizations that we captured?
Before we do, I just thought of another question. So did Mark know about the orbs before you guys got involved, or is that how he realized, oh, I've got this orb thing going on too?
I think he had mentioned it before, but he definitely nothing. Like I said, we can capture those every night.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's get right into it then. Yeah.
Okay.
And now this vocalization thing, it doesn't have any kind of a red light or anything like that. So this is literally them at their normal.
Yeah. Yes. So one of the things that we had done is we have a Songbird Mini 2 long duration recorder, and we've got 2 speakers set up for it for stereo sound. And we mounted this audio recorder behind Mark's house about 30, 40 foot into the woods going down the hill. It records continuously 24/7 for up to about 2 weeks, maybe 14, 15 days. The batteries will last. So we would switch out the SD cards that the audio files are written to with new audio cards and put new batteries in. And I'm guessing we deployed that probably the end of mid-June up through November. And this audio is all coming from that recorder that we had deployed. And one of the things that I have done here, I'm going to pause this as I bring it up. Up here in every slide here that you see, we have the date that the audio was made, the time. So this one was 5/29/2024, around 8 p.m. With the audio recorder, there's a software called Kaleidoscope that you can play back, and it basically creates the visualization of the sound that you see in this bottom window here. So when you go through, you don't have to listen to every minute of every sound ever made. You quickly learn that sound has representation in visual context, and you can scan a lot of video knowing where to look. And then up here at the top, this is just the decibel range that the screenshot was set up when we were going through it and listening. We deployed this. Yeah, I think it was 5/25 is when we deployed this audio recorder. And this is one of the first sounds that we got. And for your audience, about 13 seconds into it, you're going to hear bipedal footsteps are going to start off very faint, and they're going to get louder and louder. Then around the 13-second mark, you're going to hear this gurgle pop sound, and you're going to hear this thing walk up to our audio recorder, and you're going to hear it sniff, and you're going to hear him make like a noise at about 35 seconds. So I think this whole clip is about 40 seconds. So here we go. And there he walks away.
My goodness.
You want me to play it again?
Yeah.
It's almost making like a humming noise at one point, or
yeah. About I think it's about 35 seconds into it. He's sort of like,
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely play it again.
The very heavy footsteps. A deer would never make that much noise.
Oh yeah.
Yep. All right, here we go. Yeah, he definitely came up there and gave it a good whiff, didn't he?
How high up on the tree is that again?
So we put the audio recorder, about 4 foot up off the tree?
Four.
Okay.
Yeah. And one thing earlier we'd mentioned, I think I did, about their sense of smell. And just so your audience knows, so the first time we deployed the audio recorder, we set it up. We actually screwed it into the tree, put a big Python lock cable on it just to make sure nothing happened to it. And the second time there to change the batteries and switch out the SD card, Mother Nature called and I had to do my business, number one, and I just stepped over about 10 foot away from that audio recorder. When we reviewed that next time I was down, the Sasquatch that came up after that, I think it was 2 days after we had changed out the batteries and SD card, urinated in the same area I did. And you hear it plain as day on the audio recorder. So we were like, wow, did it have a scent? Is its sense of smell that acute, that good? So we did an experiment. I did that 3 more times, and every time I took care of my business there near that audio recorder, the Sasquatches would mark over my territory. We thought that
really
was very telling. Yeah.
That's
and also the length of the pee, like he had sent it to me, so I had it on my phone and I went to the restroom and I hit play, and as soon as it started peeing, I started peeing, and it peed like a lot longer and more than I did. It, whatever it was, had a bladder the size of a cow, but it sounded like peeing. Obviously, there's no cows in that area, though.
Charles, that's the best science experiment I've ever heard. Like, that's good job, dude.
So this, like I said, this is from 529. Now our next audio is going to, let's see here. This audio is from July 20th, 2024. It's around 3 in the morning. And it is, bear with me here one second. About 21 seconds into this audio, you're going to hear a howl, a Bigfoot howl.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
There he was. He was like a Chewbacca howl. Did that come through?
That, yes, it's faint,
Yeah.
but I could pick it up. Yeah, that is very interesting.
I literally thought that was outside right now. I thought that was like, I didn't remember that. I thought it was outside. It was faint, but very distinct.
I'll play it one more time.
All right.
Yep, there he is, Chewbacca howl.
That's awesome. Is that something that does he hear the Chewbacca howl quite a bit, or?
We've captured the Chewbacca howl about 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one-offer that they do.
Oh man.
And as loud as you could hear it picking the crickets and stuff up, that howl might have been a mile away. This thing is just so sensitive. Like I say, it picks up airplanes flying overhead.
So our audio 5 that I'm going to bring up is you're going to hear another howl about 11 seconds into it. So I'll just go ahead and double click it and we'll let it play as it comes up on the screen.
It's very mournful. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll play it one more time. And it's hard to play, but you'll see at that tick mark on that X axis there, you'll see the visualization down low between the 0 and 1.0 kilohertz. So I'll play this and you'll watch it when it goes over.
Yeah.
So our next audio is let me pull up my notes here, is about 6 seconds into this audio. You're going to hear a vocalization. And then as the audio continues to play, you'll hear another vocalization about 13 seconds. So I'll just go ahead and pull it up and let it play as it comes over the screen. And it makes like a woo la la sound. Did that come through for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I'll go ahead and play it one more time here. So, this audio was, July 17th, 2024, around 10 p.m. We had, Charles and I, not absolutely, but we'd always thought that Sasquatch creatures were more active at nighttime, maybe more nocturnal, but the Paul property has taught us otherwise. You may get action during the day, tree knocks, vocalizations, just as easily at night. You get the same thing. There's really no rhyme or reason other than if you're out there, be listening and be looking, because something may happen.
The Tennessee place is more closer to their home. I think they're living closer to that area. Where in the Kentucky encounters we had, I think those were on a hunting mission or had traveled a little further away. I don't think we quite hit in, quote unquote, their neighborhood. Where in Tennessee, obviously, we are right in the hood. That's where they live. That's where they stay. That's where they eat and hunt. And it's the food supply around there. You can literally, even a human can just walk through the woods picking up big monster-sized grapes that grow down there and fall and just cover the whole ground. We don't have grapevine grapes up here in Kentucky. I had never seen that before. And persimmons and pears, I mean, just the food is abundance there for them. They don't have to travel to hunt or look other places.
Oh, yeah. You've got grapes, but you've also got all the deer that you're picking up on your video and cameras as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Abundance of wildlife. There's plenty of food in those forests down there. And in our next audio, you're going to hear a vocalization at 6 seconds. And this is a little bit longer vocalization. I think it'll start around 6 seconds into it and maybe end at 12 or 13 seconds. So I'll just go ahead and pull that up real quick. And here we go. So that one was crazy. It's like it was going woo la la la, and did it for some time. I'll go ahead and play it one more time for your audience.
Could possibly be a female calling in juveniles that are out playing. Obviously, that one was a whole lot different than the others.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that was a female voice rather than a male.
Absolutely. I would say female if I had to bet either male or female, but I keep hearing almost something that sounds similar to a part of language, but different, and it's very strange.
That's what made me think that maybe it was a female calling in the juveniles that were maybe out playing or hunting. like it's time to come on home, or like you say, it just sounds different than the other howls that we have heard. A howl can be, I'm over here, or where you at? But this one we just listened to, it's almost like it was communicating with another. Like, hey, come on in, supper's ready, or it's getting dark, come on in. It was like a communication by the length of it.
Yeah, like it's trying to tell somebody, it's tell another one something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's so cool is these sounds so far, they're different than, this is very unique audio, which is very cool.
Yeah. So our next audio, this is really good. This was made July 11th, 2024. And to give you the context, it was afternoon. Mark had just finished mowing his yard, and he was out back. And one of the things he always done after he mowed his yard out back, he has a water hose, and he'll run water over his hair to cool down. And his girlfriend Sonia was there. But after he got done mowing, there was a Bigfoot in the woods behind his house, and the Bigfoot impersonated the lawnmower. So what we've got is the first audio I'll play is actually the Bigfoot imitating a lawnmower. And then immediately after the Bigfoot or Sasquatch had done that, Mark made his lawnmower imitation. So you'll be able to see on the kaleidoscope the different ranges of a human voice doing this lawnmower versus a Sasquatch. And then after we go through each of these audios a couple of times, I've got a slide that I'll bring up that you can visually see the difference between Mark doing it and the Sasquatch doing it.
Fantastic.
So here we go with the Sasquatch imitating a lawnmower behind Mark's house. This cracks me up every time.
Way different.
Yeah. So I'm going to play the Sasquatch one more time, and then we'll go to Mark. He was getting on at the end there.
That's awesome. That's funny because that's something that Mark would bring up in our conversations a lot, is like, they're making the lawnmower noises again. Yeah. I'm like, all right, dude.
Okay, so for your audience, this is Mark who immediately done his lawnmower impersonation after the Sasquatch. So there was Mark. I'll play it one more time, but Mark may have had a misfire starting off there. He didn't. He wasn't strong as the Sasquatch was coming up. Here we go.
That's awesome.
Now, with that being said, this was several years ago. Me and Greg had gone down to the Big South Fork, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we had found a gravel road out in the middle of nowhere, and it was just fields on both sides. And at that point, we didn't have thermal, but we're really interested. We didn't have thermal then, did we?
Mm-hmm.
And we drove to the end of the road and turned around. Obviously, no houses, no nothing anywhere around. And we come back about on the 50-yard line on that road and stopped because it was just really open all the way around. And we heard one that made a weed eater sound. And it was loud enough and close enough that it actually put us in the truck. We had been sitting out on the tailgate watching stars and looking around, and that caught us so off guard that, yeah, we literally got in the truck and turned it around so that way if something came, we could go ahead and leave. So they do imitate noises, obviously, that they heard. It just like a kid would.
Most definitely. So here is the kaleidoscope representation of the Sasquatch that you just heard. And then here is Mark, and I'm going to pull this over here. And I'm going to zoom in. We talked about the 1 to 2 kilohertz zone. Just look at the Sasquatch right here. You can see him. He is really, and he was much louder, more of a baritone, like a baritone deep singer compared to Mark over here. You heard Mark. Now, Mark wasn't initially making the greater depth noises, but it's night and day when you look at these two. There at the end where Mark was really revving his engine, he got up into the range there of about 1.5 kilohertz. But you can see the Sasquatch was above 2.5 there several times through here. So that was really, really amazing to have captured that. And like Charles said, I can't say definitively that what we heard in the Big South Fork, it sounded like a real weed eater. I was just scratching my head. There's nobody around. We're in the middle of nowhere. That's such a remote area, probably 10 miles from where we were at in the Big South Fork, the University of Knoxville, University of Tennessee, I should say. They have a astronomy viewing area there. It's a great place if you're into stargazing. There is like zero light pollution down there because there's just absolutely nothing but forest. And I think that Sasquatch did a pretty good Lawnmower impersonation as well. He was revving and lowering and didn't have any misfires for sure.
And like I say, we had drove to the end of the road. So we drove to the end of the road and then turned around and drove halfway back out. The direction we heard it making the weed eater noise, we knew for sure there were no houses or vehicles or driveways or anything. It was almost like a little gravel road that just went to a few farms that didn't even have fences up. It was almost like open grazing or something.
Sure. The other thing, you can also see there's, and I'm not an audio expert, but it's that where the 6 hertz is, there seems to be a difference in the band that goes across there between the two as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Yeah. The Sasquatch, he was just deeper for sure and louder as well. But I thought that was something, if any of your audience watching this, if they've ever encountered the same or been able to capture it, I'd love to hear more of them doing impersonations.
It's fascinating evidence that you captured through this. I think this is one of the coolest pieces of evidence that you have, is this right here.
Yeah. And going back to our first audio, just so your audience knows, I had sent that to you, Jeremiah, and you'd forwarded it and some other samples that we had collected at Mark's to Mr. David Ellis of the Olympic Project. And this is most definitely his wheelhouse. And just so your audience knows, he reviewed the first audio that you listened to and found a great significance to it. He had replied to your email and basically talked about a orangutan in a German zoo by the name of Tilda, and how they call it percussive speech, how she started forming symbols and trying to make words. And in the first audio we played, about the 6 seconds in there, you heard that popping noise. And Mr. Ellis found that very significant because it matched up with Tilda in another research area that he had worked in. And he came to the conclusion that these are not humans, but in I guess a lot of audio analysis, this is a theory of how humans progress into using speech through the sounds, clicks, mouth pops, and grunts as a natural progression. So I was really excited and very thankful to Mr. Ellis for his time and efforts in reviewing this and getting back to me with this information. It was wonderful, and I'm very thankful to him and his group.
It's weird because I remember that back and forth with David, and at the same time I'm also analyzing audio that had been captured from the meadow area out in Oak Ridge, Oregon, and the same kind of things were being noticed in audio from out there as well. It's very strange kind of connections and synchronicities, but yeah, fascinating stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. What's going on in Tennessee and it's happening in Iowa and Washington State, you really have to stand back and scratch your head and understand that there's more to Sasquatches than people realize. I know we still haven't got species recognition or protection, but maybe this will be one step closer into moving that needle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just so your audience knows, these were some of the things that we have been able to capture and document and record at the Mark Paul property. We didn't do everything. If we tried to do that, it might be a 20 show round, but it's been a wonderful place. And I think we're at a progression at the Paul property. Charles, myself, and Mark, we've been very fortunate, and a lot has come from the Paul property. But I think technology needs to be leveraged in the field of high resolution thermal, particularly tilt pan zoom thermal security cameras, because these creatures are not going to come around the infrared light, or at least this group around Mark, so it's not going to have anything to do with it. But a high definition thermal, it's come a long way. It's really good. Where our tilt pan zoom camera is mounted, if that were a thermal camera, high definition thermal security camera, you're going to be getting some outstanding video as well as unbelievable resolution of details of these creatures, their anatomy, their faces, their size, everything.
It'll be interesting to see where this goes next. It sounds like your plan is to continue with this property and to continue looking at evidence, trying to gather. But yeah, just imagine what could come from it if there was more improved technology that would be able to be used. Sure.
Yep. And my apologies. I had forgot we have one more audio. I apologize. This too is a really good audio. Let me give your audience the backstory.
All right.
Mid-October, I had made a trip, and a friend of mine that I worked with, a colleague by the name of Ron Cavalier, who also is a researcher from Central Iowa, he came down and we got a cabin for a week at Standing Stone State Park. And we had done some work at Mark's property, as well as we focused a lot in the Standing Stone State Park and State Forest. And we know another gentleman who's a researcher in that area, a gentleman by the name of Craig Roach, and he invited Mark, Paul, myself, and Ron Cavalier out. We went out on a night hike to some area where he had noted some activity, found some good footprints. And what we did is we took our long duration audio recorder and I mounted that to my backpack. So the whole time we were out, if we got a wood knock, a vocalization, anything, we were going to get it. And we got probably more than we bargained for that night. And I'll just go ahead and go into the audio and let your audience hear. Here we go.
No, I don't think so. That's sort of similar to what we heard at the dam. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion, Craig?
I don't know. I thought coyotes at first, but
No, I think
some of them are long.
So
That's awesome.
So that was, yeah. So you'll hear, I didn't believe those were coyotes you initially hear, but within that audio, probably about 10 seconds, you hear a Bigfoot doing a long vocalization. And then that Bigfoot, he stops and then he starts up again. But I'll play it one more time and just give you some more background. Initially, that was me talking that you hear. We're hearing this and we're traversing down this hill and we're all looking. And normally at nighttime when we go out, Charles, myself, we don't broadcast white light. We rely on thermal to try to get anything. But this night with everyone, a larger group, we're like, hey, we're just going to light up like a Christmas tree. We had white lights going crazy. And as soon as we crossed over the hill is when the well, they're not coyotes, I don't believe, but I could be wrong. We heard those and then the Bigfoot in there. So I'll go ahead and play that again.
No, I don't think so. That's sort of similar to what we heard at the dam. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion, Craig?
I don't know. I thought coyotes at first, but no, I think coyotes. Some of them are like.
Yeah, that's definitely not just coyotes for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we were all definitely stumped on that one and a little concerned. Whatever it was, there seemed to be many of them.
Craig's a good guy.
Yeah, really enjoy. He is a great guy, and we're thankful for him taking us out that evening. We all had a great time. But let me get back to my PowerPoint presentation here. Let's see here. It moved on me there a little bit. Let's see. So let's get through. So here is some pictures I got with a drone down there that week. So here is a map of the Standing Stone State Forest and Park. You can see the state park boundaries here. There's the key, and then the green is the state forest. But once again, just to give your audience an idea, just look at the timber in this area. Another probably 20 to 22 miles to the horizon. This is the lake, one of the fingers to the lake right there. You'll see that coming into Standing Stone. There is just plenty for it. You couldn't find people out there if you wanted to. If they wanted to be hidden, you're not going to find a person. What we were touching on earlier, the future research at the Paul property, I talked about leveraging a high definition thermal camera. These guys want nothing to do with visible or infrared light. And I'm going to put on my carnival barker hat here. Academia, here is your opportunity. If this type of equipment's probably about $20,000 to $30,000 in range, but it's going to produce at the Paul property. If there's an individual or group of people to come together in a partnership to invest in getting this technology, you're going to have the new Patterson-Gimlin film in thermal, something that's even going to be tougher for the skeptics to deny when you've got high definition thermal and every square inch of these creatures is putting off heat to debunk the costume theory. Whoever, Expedition Bigfoot producers, if you're interested, here's your opportunity.
I know you guys are watching. I know they watch this show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Here is your opportunity. You still continue with your research and your outings in the vast areas, but open up a sideline here. All the infrastructure is in place. You've got electricity. You've got good, reliable internet. It's right there. One or two people reviewing the previous night's video. It's no problem. For every morning from the previous night, I review our cameras down there. So here it is. I'm telling you, the Paul property, whether these things habituate there, I don't know. Do they transit there? Absolutely. They're transitory. This is the opportunity for anyone to bring it up who has the ability to leverage higher end technology than what we can.
That barn and chicken coop, one is on one side of his house, probably 100 foot, and the other one's on the other side of his house, about the same distance. He said he's seen them come and go out of those two structures. And of course, neither one of them have been functioning chicken houses or barns for a long time. They could very well be staying in one of those shelters on nights like tonight when we're going to get bad snow or ice.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing for any group of people that were to come together, academia or private investment, whatever, if some folks in that closer to the Paul property or even in Clay County, Tennessee, train up some folks for specimen collection, hair, stool, and tissue, have a lab ready to go if you are able to obtain any of those types of samples and ship it off for more DNA evidence.
It seems like you guys put in the hard work, and now you're right. It's at the point where there could be some serious evidence, even better than what you've already captured, to come out of this property. And it's not just Mark's property is amazing, but like there's stuff going on around it as well. This whole area is crazy from what he's told me.
Yeah, I agree. And in the bigger context, the Paul property is not unique. I'm sure all across this country, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Paul properties. Many reasons we don't hear about it. The property owners just want to keep quiet. They might have a job where they could face ridicule, potentially lose their job, their form of employment. They just may not want the grief and misery. They may not want other people, academics or researchers on their property. But Mark stands ready. He's ready to go up the next level. Like Charles and I, he wants to see species recognition and protection. And this is one of the many ways that the progression is going to have to take for that to happen.
Absolutely. If there are people that are interested in this, is there a way they can reach out to you, Greg, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, so let's do this. Hold on here a second. Let me bring something up here and we'll do this. Let me just put this on here. Bear with me 1 second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my email address.
Okay.
Right here it is for everyone to see. It's real easy. It's a very old one. It's tuckergregory@aol.com.
Nice.
Anyone that wants to reach out, just a brief sentence or two, and please give me your good phone number, your cell number, and either Charles or I or both of us will give you a call and talk.
Fantastic.
And one other thing that Charles and I have talked about, we've both done a lot of research, and one of the oldest accounts of Sasquatch comes from Lucretius Carus, the 1st century Roman poet and philosopher, and he wrote a book on the nature of things and gave descriptions. At that time, they called them wild men, and they talk about them having strong bodies covered with hair, lived in caves and forests, did not wear clothing, ate raw meat, a lot of the things that we hear today. And something many folks may not be aware of, the U.S. Library of Congress had formed a partnership with the National Endowment for the Humanities to create the National Digital Newspaper Program. So right now you can go to the U.S. Library of Congress for free, and you can research these old newspapers by state. And this endeavor is every published newspaper ever, they are scanning it, and not only are they scanning it, they're using text recognition in the scan so that you as a user, when you log in, you can pull up the state of Kentucky and you can type wild man, and it will search every newspaper article it has for that term of wild man. What led me to this, a few years back, I purchased the book Bigfoot, Wild Man, and Giant Skeletons by David Paulides of Missing 411. And he had that book contains 375 pages of newspaper articles from all across this country detailing the location, the dates and encounters, and in some cases, the capture of Sasquatch creatures. And his date range was from 1680 to 1922. Here he got 375 pages, and at the time the research was done for his book, it was much harder. It was done on microfiche. So with this Library of Congress and the National Endowment for the Humanities, this is a much easier project. And this may interest some of your folks or not, but what Charles and I had talked about, what if we got a group of people together, and with this program and with the emergence of artificial intelligence to write AI agents to search these archives, pull all this information out? Because the research I've done, wild man, particularly in the 1800s, was used to describe politicians, a derogatory term. They're out of the norm. They're wanting to do something left-wing or something. We'll call them wild men. But have a group of people working on this, so everything that's extracted, it could be every newspaper article could be read 3 times and validated that, yeah, this is truly a wild man. They reference it doing this, being covered in hair, whatever. And then one of my favorite websites is, what's the gentleman's name that has bigfootmap.com? Scott Tompkins. Is that it?
Scott Tompkins.
Imagine maybe partnering with Scott or working with Scott to do a map of every newspaper article in this country from the 16, 17, 1800s on a Bigfoot map, on a map like he does for encounters and sightings. And this would really, I think, help move the needle forward, because I get the skeptics. I understand it. You have to be skeptical. You can't lose your credulity. You've got to be protective. But I've found 100 articles in searching the Library of Congress that's not in Bigfoot, wild men, and giant skeletons. That's just me doing it part-time. Imagine AI agents, a group of people coming together to review, and a website put out for free for everyone to use, like Scott done. That's going to be huge.
Oh, yeah.
That's really going to tip the balance. And if that worked out well, if that ever came to fruition, there's Europe. Europe could do the same, because I've researched European archives and the Bigfoot descriptions of 1800s in America, also in Europe. But yeah, anyway, so that was just some of the thoughts that Charles talked about on those trips down to Tennessee and back. But brainstorming. But if anyone wants to contact me, there it is, tuckergregory@aol.com. And like I said, either Charles or myself or both of us will get back with you. And one other thing we would like to mention, we still have equipment at the Paul property, but we want to see some newer technology leverage there. And we're probably looking to find places in central Kentucky or south central Kentucky, southeastern Kentucky, to do the same type of work in our area closer to us that we've done at Mr. Paul's property. So if any of your listeners out there have any craziness going on or have any aggressive Sasquatch on your property, the more aggressive, the better, because aggressive Sasquatch make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, we're able to document it more easily.
Absolutely. I would want to put another word in, is if you're a listener and you do want to become involved, I would do things the right way and reach out to Greg and Charles. At the last episode, I had to talk a few people out of just showing up, and that is not the right thing to do. When you have a situation like Mark's property where things are just working perfectly and you've got Sasquatch there, we want to make sure that things continue to run there. And we want people to help out and become involved in different ways, but please reach out directly using this email to talk to Greg or Charles. I think that would be the great way to start that, if people are wanting to, you could say.
And that, like on the first trip down there, that's the reason just Greg went. We didn't want to send two people down. We don't want them to mess anything up. We just want to see what's there.
Minimum footprint, low footprint. And also any other researchers in central Kentucky. We enjoy meeting other folks and getting out with them. Send me an email if you want to go squatching sometime.
And I want to cover this. A lot of people are always, why don't hunters get them on their trail cams? That once again gets back to, if there was a red light in your bedroom, how quick would that stick out? And number two, people have got lazy. They'll only deer hunt where they can park their four-wheeler right beside the tree or something. No hunter is going to walk 2.5 miles back in the woods, shoot a deer, and then have to manually carry it out. Bigfoot, they stay a little further away than what most people are willing to walk. A good example, back 20 years ago, I was doing surveying work up in Jackson County. Older man, he was right at 90 years old, had a 700 or 800 acre farm, mountain farm, and somebody on the back side of him had logged theirs and had accidentally logged onto his, and it came out, so we had to go in and survey and get a shot on all the stumps to show what trees they had removed, walnut or hickory or whatever. And About halfway through his farm, we ran into a cliff wall that ran all the way across. You just couldn't get down except for one spot, and that was on the far end. And we found it because we followed the deer trail, think the deer will know how to get down there. And we get down in the bottom there, and it was probably the back 150 acres of the farm, and there was a church back there. No sign of a gravel road, no, just a church. Had all the windows in it. The door was open. Bibles were still in the back of the pews. I think one window was broke out. The door was open. Trees had grown up right next to it and everything. And that was actually on this man's farm. And he had grown up on that farm his whole life. He was actually born in the house he was living in at the front. And when he asked, what'd you find out? We were like, your property goes back about 200 or 300 feet past the old church back there. And he said, what church? He had lived on this piece of property for 90 years, grew up as an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 20-year-old. Even when he was an adult and deer hunting, he had never took it upon himself to find a way down that cliff face to see that there was a church on his own property. If you can hide a church on your own property, how hard would it be for a Bigfoot to hide on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, wow.
A church on his property that he had never seen in his life. That's crazy. That just tells you right there that something that wanted to hide from you could hide from you pretty easy.
No, it's a great example. But, Greg and Charles, I just want to say thank you for taking a few hours hanging out and just showing what you have captured there at the Mark Paul property over the last few months. I appreciate you guys coming in. I hope that you are able to keep in touch with, if you're able to get more evidence out of this property, and maybe we'll have to have you back on in the future to provide an update or two about what's going on with your research.
Yeah, sounds great.
Definitely.
Thank you very much, Jeremiah, and thank you to your audience and all the other guests that you've had on your show.
Special thank you to Gregory Tucker and Charles McCloud for coming on the show to share what they've discovered evidence-wise over at the Paul property, and a special thank you to Mr. Mark Paul himself for being an instrumental part in the current and future search for Sasquatch by allowing his property to be part of that research. Thank you, Mark.